This phrase is just everywhere. It's so hot right now. You've really exploded in popularity. So congratulations on all of your success. And I would love to start by just the simple question of, can you describe the let them theory and how it applies
Mhm.
to business founders and CEOs?
Oh, great question. So, the let them theory is a simple mindset hack that shows you immediately what's in your control and what's not in your control. And that's ultimately what the let them theory is about. It's about power and control. And it is particularly important in business because there are going to be things every single day that are within your control and that are not in your control. And when you get yourself obsessed with the things about your business or your team that you can't control, it's just going to stress you out. And what we're going to talk about today, as it relates to business and leadership in particular, is that the more you're stressed out, the more you are bringing that tight, micromanagey, narrow focused energy to your team and to your business, the worse your team is going to do and the worse your business is going to do. The single best thing that you can do as a leader, because everything starts with you. There's this famous saying, I don't know who to credit for this. I first heard it from my executive coach and a person that I work with to become a better leader and to steer my company in a positive direction, because let's face it, it is extraordinarily difficult to be founder operator. It's also very difficult to be owner operated operator. And I had a lot of bad habits. And this saying that he has that I don't know who to attribute this to is this: leaders bring the weather. And the let them theory is going to allow you to do a number of things. It's going to allow you to manage your stress. It is going to allow you to understand and focus on what's in your control and what's not in your control. It's going to help you identify where you're giving power away and how to take power back. And here's how it works. At any moment, when you're nervous, stressed, frustrated, annoyed, distracted, emotional in any regard about anything related to your business or team, you're just going to be like, let them, let them. And the reason why you have to say let them, and we're going to unpack this in detail, is because if you allow the day-to-day micro things to hijack your stress, it is going to make you an ineffective leader. And it's also going to interfere with your brain's ability to think critically about how to respond to anything that's happening in your business. So let them is this moment where you're not releasing control. You're not, kind of throwing your hands in the air and saying, oh, I guess I just have to let them do this or let them. No, it's not like that. Let them is a recognition that this issue that's bothering me is not where my power is. Therefore, I'm going to recognize that and say, let them. The thing that my team did already happened. The nasty review that the customer left online already happened. The deal that you didn't win already happened. The interest rates that you can't control have already happened. And now the power is not in getting upset about what's going on in the markets or getting upset about how hard it is to hire people who are talented. Your power is in your response. And that's the second part of the theory. After you say let them, you're going to say let me remind myself at all times. I have three things I can control. I can control what I think about this. I can control what I do and don't do. And one of the major mistakes that I've made as a CEO is I often feel I need to do something, and I often react out of panic or fear or anger. And all that does, because leaders bring the weather, is it spreads more panic, fear, and anger through your organization and team. And the third thing that you can control, and this is probably what we're going to focus a lot on, because this is where it changes you as a leader, and that changes and trickles down into your organization. The let me part is also about let me manage my response to my feelings about this thing. Let me show up as a CEO instead of showing up like an 8-year-old toddler inside a big body that's constantly reacting to things and sending shockwaves through an organization that needs something different from me. And so that's the let them theory, simple mindset tool, let them and let me, which shows you in any moment in your business or your life, okay, what's in my control here? What's not in my control here? Let me stop giving power to things because of my emotions and let me take the power back and lead.
I love that. That quote really resonated with me. What kind of weather are you bringing today from your bonus chapter? So, what did inspire you to create that bonus chapter specifically on leadership that, of course, speaks to our community so much? And do you have any interesting feedback or testimonies from the business community so far about that free bonus chapter?
Yeah, well, I decided because, the book itself is well over 300 pages with 18 pages of, bibliography and citations and all these neuroscientists and experts in there kind of really digging in to the themes of control, peace, and power and how it's created frustration in your relationships and also how you've turned other people into a problem and how you can use the let them theory to both improve your relationships and also stop making other people a problem for you. But what I started to realize is there are two big topics that require and deserve more attention and detail. And one of them was parenting. And the other one was, how do you use this at work? Because as a CEO, I can't just let my team do whatever the hell they want. I can't just let things play out however they're going to play out. Like I got to lead. And so I wanted to lean more into those two specific applications of the let them theory. And so I reached out to two experts that I very much respect to help me co-write these two free resources. And the response has been extraordinary. In terms of the let them theory for teams, we've had tens of thousands of people download this thing. It is a guide that is there to kind of remind you of what you know to be true and give you some principles for how to use the let them theory to be more effective using the science of influence instead of trying to manage top down. It's really about activating the motivation and the skills and the interest of people that work for you to rise up. And so you're doing it through people rather than doing it like by really feeling like you got to be the one directing everything. And it's a very different management approach. And so the person that co-wrote this with me, it's important to know, has been the chief operating officer of Pandora Music, of SiriusXM, of Curate Retail, which is the group that I believe owns Williams Sonoma and Pottery Barn. Before that, he's done stints at Microsoft, at Amazon. I mean, this is a person who understands operations. And I think CEOs get all the credit. And the COO is actually the backbone of an organization because it's one thing to have a vision, but if you can't execute, you're screwed. And it's the person that's really thinking about operations. And let's talk about what are operations. Operations are people. A company is nothing without its people. And I know everybody is extraordinarily nervous about AI and excited about AI, but people are also concerned about AI and how we're going to use it. At the end of the day, it's still all about the people. Are the people that work for you excited to work for you? And there's a simple way that you can tell. Here's what you need to ask for yourself. When you pull into work in the morning, do you think the people that work for you are excited to walk into the building? When your name shows up on an email, do you think that people are generally open to what you have to say, or are they rolling their eyes at you because you're a nightmare? Like, I think it's pretty obvious when you're somebody that has your people in mind, because your people are your operations, and when you're somebody who just has you and the bottom line in mind. And so really the let them theory, what it's going to do is it's going to force you to understand that you will get better results when you empower and influence people, not when you micromanage them. And one of the hardest aspects of using the let them theory, at least for me, is making sure I'm the one. Let me be focused on outcomes and let me be clear about my expectations and what it means to deliver these outcomes for success. And 9 times out of 10, if something is not going well in my business or in your business, if you really use the let them theory and you let them know what the outcomes are, and you let them know what success looks like, and you let them have the resources that they need in order to get what you have asked done, and then you let me get out of the way, and you focus on how to nudge people along and lift them up inside a very clear container, that's the winning formula. But what I've found, you guys, is the biggest mistake that I've always made is I'm not clear in my communication. I'm rushing so fast that I'm not taking enough time to slow down and make sure everybody understands exactly what success looks like. If there's a breakdown, it's almost always about a lack of process or a lack of clarity or a lack of skill set in a particular seat. It's almost never about somebody's desire to succeed. And that's, I think, also a very important thing about this is that the people that work for you want to do well. They want to thrive in their jobs. They want to make a big difference. They want to get promoted. They want to make money. That's why they're there. And as CEOs, we often, in the frustration and difficulty of running a business, we forget that. And we start to turn against the very people that are doing the best that they can with the communication that you've given and the resources that they have and the broken processes that have been around forever to actually deliver the results. And if you take it on and you're willing to go, it's on me, let me lead the way, let me also define the way, and then let me get out of the way, and let me go into a supporting role, it takes time to make this shift. But when you do, it's pretty incredible how things change.
Thank you. You say that better leaders create a better world, which is definitely a phrase that we also love. What is your vision for a better world, and how do we get there?
Oh my God, that's a big question. I'm very discouraged by the fact that we've gotten to a point where it seems that people are incapable of having conversations that have opposing point of views or different point of views, I should say, because everything is not a zero-sum game in life and business. Not every win has to mean somebody else loses. To be for somebody, you don't have to be against something else. And I am deeply concerned that politics, business, that everything's become entertainment. Everything is reduced to a soundbite. Everything is about the profit and not the people. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I fundamentally believe is that 95% of people have a good heart. They're a kind person. They want to do well. They're not looking to be a billionaire. They're not looking to, cure cancer. They're simply looking to do a little better than they did yesterday. They're looking for their families to do better. They're looking to feel better. That's what people want. And to me, when you start from that truth, that most people kind of believe the same things and are just looking to show up at work and feel like they know what to do a good job, and they have the tools and the resources to actually get it done. And that when they do a good job, that they're acknowledged for it, and that there's not this constant beatdown of everything that's wrong. And so, to me, the way that I see a better world happening is it starts with each one of us. And this is also part of the principle of the let them theory. It's easy in today's world to look at the headlines or to look at the economy or to look at the constant drumbeat of change and to feel overwhelmed and powerless. And my message is simple. You're not powerless, because the power is not out there. The power is in how you respond to it. And the world will become a better place if we can learn how to sit in a room and be with people that have different ways of seeing things and be the mature adult that's able to let them have their point of view. And when you let somebody else have their point of view, you now can let me take a step forward. And there's two tools in the book that I think are particularly important for everybody to understand, because this isn't my point of view. This is the research on science. There's research in there from Dr. Tali Sharot, who is at King's College London and also at MIT. She's a neuroscientist who studies the science of influence. And her research is conclusive that one of the reasons why it's impossible for us to change other people is because the second you try to tell somebody else what to do, or you try to convince them of thinking something that's different than what they think, the part of the brain that actually listens and absorbs new information literally just tunes you right out, doesn't even listen to you. And so we've gotten to a point where everybody's shouting at each other and frustrated, speaking through their emotions, and nobody's brains are even listening. And so in order to stop this and make the world and your business a better place, you have to be the leader. You have to be the one. You have to be the emotionally mature adult in the room. And instead of yelling and getting upset and being frustrated and thinking your way is the only way, you got to model this behavior that when somebody has an opposing point of view, you let them have that point of view, and then you step forward and you try to understand, why might you have that point of view? Why might you believe what you believe? And what I've always found is that even in the most challenging circumstances, whether it's personal and somebody has voted in a way that I just can't even understand, or it's business and somebody that works for me has done something that I think is the stupidest thing. It has backfired in a major way. It's like a major problem. And I, from my seat, is like, how the, could you even do that in that situation? But guess what happens? If I actually explode at somebody, what happens is I now threaten them, and I'm going to turn that person that works for me into somebody that feels helpless, shut down, and judged. And that's going to create a dynamic of learned helplessness, where the people that work for you believe they get in trouble if they make a mistake, and they become afraid of you. So they start hiding what's going on. You need to learn how to let them do what they're doing and let them make their mistakes and step toward them, and have, in a calm, rational way, the ability to say, let's walk through what happened. Explain to me the decisions that you made. And what you'll see very often is you will see in every mistake that's made in your company a couple extraordinary things. Number one, it always reveals the broken process. Number two, it always highlights where there is a lack of skill or a lack of training. Number three, it always highlights where you as the leader weren't clear about something. And number four, and more importantly, when you find this, it shows you the opportunities where you can grow and innovate. And this is critical, because if you create a company where you punish mistakes, the mistakes are actually where you innovate. The mistakes are things you want everyone to know about, so that nobody repeats them. And there's something that you can steal. I believe this comes from Etsy. Etsy had this kind of famous story that happened where, I guess, as you might imagine, Etsy's website around the holidays is just like overflowing with traffic, right? And I guess, and I'm probably going to get some of the details wrong, but you're going to get the gist of the story to make my point. Apparently, there was an engineer who changed a line of code right around this time, and it nearly brought down the entire site. And this engineer, and you can imagine if this had been done in some companies, they'd fire this person. Yes. They did something different instead. They celebrated the fact that he came to their manager with, the heavy head and the, oh my God, I just about celebrated the fact that they brought the mistake to light. Mm-hmm. Because by letting everybody else on the engineering team know that this almost happened, it was never going to happen again. They took it a step further, and they created something called the Three-Armed Sweater Award. And every year, someone at Etsy wins the 3-armed sweater award, and they hang it over their desk to celebrate the biggest mistake that somebody made, because they recognize that it's in those things that we do wrong that we actually figure out how to do things right. This has been the single hardest application of the let them theory for me, because I basically run a business with 25 million followers. This month alone, we've had, I think to date, in I don't even know the numbers. It's something insane, like 40. Are we over 50 mil? Like I don't even know the numbers. We did 32 million downloads of the Mel Robbins podcast in 17 days in the month of February.
Congratulations.
And so the size of this business, the fact that social media is open 24/7, all of this creates a level of intensity and feeling like the stakes are high. And I have to constantly remind myself, I am not running an operating room. People are not living and dying based on this business. I am running a podcast, and I publish books, and I give speeches. And so, Mel, even when the mistakes are public, even when the things go off the rail, remind yourself of the stakes. And also remember, if I explode or overblow something because it feels like a lot, I'm actually not empowering the team to fix something. Because if I go into storm and thundercloud mode in my body, I'm going to create that in everybody. And here's what's important to understand. Also research in the book. You lead with this. This is your prefrontal cortex. You also lead with this. This is your heart and your soul and your character and your values. In order to be a great leader, you got to be able to think clearly, but you also have to be able to be present and calm so that you can stay true to your values and your character. And what happens when you allow the stress of the business to get to you is it turns on your amygdala, which is a different part of your brain that is your fight or flight response. And when your amygdala is running you, your prefrontal cortex is not online, and you are not grounded in your body, and you will not lead very well. And I spent way too long, as my business was going from startup mode to trying to get it into that sort of steady, beautiful state of rhythms and defined OKRs and outcomes. I realized one of the major problems was, as founder, owner, operator, I was constantly in stress mode, which created a constant humming of stress to the organization. And nothing was going to change until I actually started to get control of my own reaction to the things going on in my business. Because without that, my employees will always be stressed out, and that will impact how they work. It starts with you.
Which of your 5 ways to let me lead do you want to hone in on that is most critical, and why?
So this is great. So I actually have the leading with let them guide. It's really thick. I mean, I'm like, wow, we've like put a lot out here. And so I want to summarize them, for somebody that actually doesn't know them. So it's focus on what I can control. It's reframe mistakes as opportunities. It's manage by outcomes. Be personable and present, and be consistent. The one that I want to focus on that I think is the most important, because we've already talked about reframe mistakes as opportunities, I want to talk about number 3. And number 3 is manage by outcomes. And, I have been such a micromanaging freak before the let them theory, because I was constantly stressed out. And the problem with micromanaging is that when you micromanage, what you're communicating to your team is, I don't trust you. You can't do this, which means your team, because of your micromanaging, and by the way, why does micromanaging happen? Because you didn't actually communicate what you wanted and how you wanted it done. That's why micromanaging happens. It happens because you allow yourself to get stressed out, and you never even bothered to truly communicate what you wanted done and by when, and how you're going to measure it, right? Like, how am I going to know that this is actually done? And are there steps along the way that are important to me? that you follow so that I can understand how this got done? That's on you. It's not on your team. And so managing by outcomes forces you to actually stop the Zoom parades and define very clearly, what does success look like? What does this job look like in terms of this person's roles and responsibilities? And what does success look like that in that job? And most of us are so busy running our business and doing things the way we've already done it that we haven't, other than quarterly goals or goals for the year or revenue targets. Those are the only things that we've defined. But do you know what a successful week looks like for this week? What are those outcomes? Because that's actually what your team needs. Your team needs a level of clarity about what are the outcomes for this week, because just as the business world is in a constant state of change, so too are the priorities and requests on the desks of the people that work for you. And so getting very clear, what is the outcome for, like, and this is a simple way to do it. Does everybody that worked for you know the one thing that matters most that they get done today? That's a way that you could apply this. From the CEO chair down, what is the one thing that matters most that we get done today? If people in your organization cannot answer that question, what the hell are they doing? They're guessing. And that's not their fault, it's yours.
You say that every business has a formula to follow to be successful. How do leaders go about finding that correct formula that they should be following for their business and then seeing it through?
Great. So, great question. In today's world, you don't have to guess, because even if you're innovating, somebody has figured out a problem or a goal or something that you're trying to do somewhere else, and they've probably given a speech or they've written a book or they've written a blog article. It's all out there. And so stop guessing and start looking for formulas. And a formula is just a repeatable process, a repeatable system of outcomes, a repeatable way of doing something that leads to a certain result. And one of the best tools that you have is ChatGTP. Write down the problem you're trying to solve or the innovation you're trying to create or the growth that you're trying to have, and challenge ChatGTP to think like the world's best business coach, analyzing the top business growth in the world, and come back to you with a 60-day to a 90-day to a quarterly plan of exactly what you need to do. And you're going to get a formula in a nanosecond. And then keep iterating that until you get a formula. It's like, that feels good. Then what do? You put it back in and you're like, what is the team I would need? And what are their roles to get this done? It is all out there. And so once you figure that out, whether you use ChatGTP or you search it yourself and you follow people online that have a business or that have innovated the way that you want to. I mean, I'm constantly doing this. I'm constantly saying to my team things like, well, I understand that it takes us this long to go from taping a podcast to actually creating the 73 assets that go with the podcast, from the episode to the social media stuff, to the communicating with the guests, to the blog articles, to the description, to the thumbnails online, to the titles of the podcast, to the work that, like, it's unbelievably complicated what we do. But I would like to know, has anyone else out there, whether it's in television or movies or processing engineering code, figured out how to actually like find the roadblocks that keep us slowing down and being too efficient? We can hire a consultant, we can search online. So we are constantly looking for ways to improve the way that we do things in industries outside of our own. And so that's the way that you use a formula. And here's the big pushback that most CEOs and entrepreneurs have around formulas. They say, well, then I'm copying. Everybody copies everybody. And the fact is, the second you have the formula, that's the easy part. You have to use it. And that's the hard part. And once you start using it and applying it to your business, you're going to make it your own. You're going to see what works and what doesn't work. And, you know, this is another piece of advice. And that is, I think a lot about experiments. Like, we're always running experiments. Why don't we just experiment in the next production week and see what would happen if we try to tape 8 guests in 4 days instead of 5 guests? How would that work? And now you activate your team to go solve that problem instead of telling them what to do.
You say that leadership is often misunderstood as the ability to direct
Mm.
and control, but true leadership is about influence. Powerful word, influence. What's the first step for leaders to switch from control mode to influence mode?
This is a huge paradigm shift. Leadership isn't you doing everything. Leadership is you activating the desire, the skill set, and the potential in the people that work with you and for you to do the things. You don't have to solve the problems. You need to identify the direction. You need to identify the problems that you want solved. And then you need to empower your team to go solve them.
Would love to just jump in here, Mel. I
Sure.
think you did a great job. I think Catherine covered like most of the leadership questions for me. I did want to maybe just tie a bow on it. How do you view like your definition of leadership? You talked a lot about self-awareness, influence, empowerment. How do you like where have you landed on leadership for yourself?
So, what's interesting about my business and leadership is I play two very distinct roles, which is very difficult. It would be way easier if I were just the CEO. It is very difficult and challenging to be both the person creating the content and the face of the brand and the company and in behind the microphone and in front of the camera, which is a role around being an artist and
Sure.
being talent and being a communicator and doing a good job as the CEO. And I think one of the most important things about leadership is understanding not only that, I think about my business like we're on a bus and I'm driving the bus, right? And we're going in a certain direction. And I'm the person as the CEO and the face of the business that defines the direction that we head in. But I have to understand what seat in the bus I'm actually sitting in because I shouldn't be driving it. That's the COO. I should look at the GPS because I'm defining strategy. But understanding as a leader, what is the seat on the bus that is the best seat for you to sit in? And when I think about it that way as a leader, I started to see that I was bouncing all over the bus, playing all different kinds of roles, either because I was super stressed out or I didn't have the right person in that seat, or I didn't communicate clearly what was supposed to be done in that seat, which kept me out of the seat I'm supposed to be in. And any time that you're spending doing a job or a function or solving a problem that is not yours to solve, it means you're in the wrong seat in the bus. And so defining that for myself, which is if I'm not behind a microphone or creating content or I'm in a business development meeting, which is another form of creating content, right? Or I'm not in an operations meeting being updated, then any other seat on that bus, I'm in the wrong seat. And I have to, as a leader, recognize what's the things that I do well. And if I can't do some other job in this company well, I need to get out of that seat and I need to get somebody in it who can. And so that has been a major, major breakthrough for me, is to understand that being a great leader requires both self-awareness so that you manage your emotions and you are not bringing rain clouds and storms and dysregulation to your team because you're stressed and fearful. And that's the first step of self-awareness. The second is actually self-awareness of your unique genius. And it takes founders in particular too long to replace themselves. And I think the reason why is you don't actually think about what is it that is your unique genius that only you can do in this company. And that's the seat you should be in. And once you define what the vision is and what the outcomes and what success looks like, and you have an organization where everybody kind of knows the one thing that matters the most today for their seat, Once you have that in place, things run very smoothly. But the hardest person to get out of the way when it comes to an organization is yourself, is what I've found.
Sure, sure. Makes a lot of sense. And so I guess, while we have you here, you're at the top of the game, right? You're number one, 32 million downloads. It's something that when we have someone like you on the show, we want to know, right? Like, what is it that's different about your podcast, about your channel, about your organization that you think is different than the others out there right now?
Well, I can only speak for what I know about what I'm doing.
Sure.
And I think number one, I think there's a number of things that I'm very proud of. One is that it's taken me 15 years of army crawling my way through the dirt to get to a point where people are like, wow, she's everywhere. And I'm very proud of the fact that I'm actually still the same person that I was 15 years ago when my husband's restaurant business was going under and we were under crushing debt. And I was just trying to wake up and do a little better and solve the problems that we were facing. And so I've never changed. I'm still waking up every day. And I am trying to solve the problems that I'm facing in my business and my work and my family. I'm trying to do a little bit better every day. And the core of my business is sharing all this learning with everybody else and having a business model that is ad supported so that 99% of what I do is free to everybody. And that matters to me. It matters to me that the information is free because I have been in periods of my life where I felt like I was the only one with this struggle. I've been in periods of my life where I couldn't afford to talk to a therapist, or I was so stressed out and lonely, I didn't know that there were simple solutions to the issues I was dealing with. And so the more that I've shared, the more I've just been really focused on that. How do we create a listening or a video experience for somebody or a book that's, first of all, worth somebody's time when they don't have time? Because it's not lost on me that people don't pass time listening to what I do. They actually make time. And that's a huge difference. And when you start with the end user in mind, is this worth your time? We've all had the experience of opening up a new iPhone or a new Samsung. And when you open up a product that is designed with the end user experience in mind first, when somebody actually cares about you feeling that awe or you feeling like that was worth your time, and when people don't. And so I always have thought about that. Second thing is that I've never changed my focus. And this is super important. I am a one-to-one brand. You will never hear me name my audience. You will never hear me talk about everybody. I have always thought about what I do as a walk with a friend. And I have put that intention at the forefront of everything. I never talk to everybody on the podcast. And actually, if you'll notice, when I'm talking to a world-renowned expert on the episodes where we do interviews, I'm not inviting a person to listen. You're actually at the table with me because I constantly turn and talk to you because I know you're there. I know that you hit play on the episode. I know that you have me on in the car or as you're at work or as you're commuting or as you're on a walk. And so I acknowledge you. And I do that not because it's some gimmick. I do that because my business is about helping people see a bigger possibility for themselves and giving them the tools and the expert resources and the encouragement that they need in order to do so. That's what the brand is about. And so I think that what you're seeing is the authentic aggregate effect of playing the long game.
Sure.
These are small moves that I would make every single day. And even when one of the ways that I really started the business is I was one of the most booked and requested keynote speakers in the world at corporate conferences. And what I started to realize very quickly is it was not about the sea of people in the audience. That's not how you grow your business. If you're not good on stage, you have no business charging people for what you're going to do. That's the price of entry.
Hmm.
The real excellence is in the little things that relate to the people that run the business. And so I realized very quickly that, when I'm traveling alone and I'm giving a keynote speech in Omaha and my husband's home with our 3 little kids and I'm lonely, the best way to actually feel connection is to just be like connected to the people that are running the event. So I would just naturally text the event planner as I was landing at 11 o'clock at night. No other keynote speaker does that. Why? Because they're thinking about the ego on the stage. They think the job is about destroying the stage. No, the job's not that. The job is how you make people feel. And so when I text the event planner, now he or she doesn't need to lie awake and wonder if the keynote speaker in the morning's here. I've already done that for them. When I walk in the morning, I've already texted them like, I'm stopping at Starbucks. You guys want anything? I'm taking the time to introduce myself to the production team out back. I'm thanking them. I'm not some diva that's like, you got to do the presentation this way. It's got to be. No, this is your event. I'm here to play a role. Let me be like as kind and as welcoming to every one of you. And then when I walk out on that stage, I have the same philosophy. I believe even in a sea of 30,000 people, that there's one human being that is sitting in that arena who was meant to be there. And that their life or the life of somebody that they deeply care about will be forever changed because of what I'm about to say. And I speak to that one person. And that's my job. And that's always been my job. And the final thing that I think has really changed the game over the long term is I play the long game. I'm very aware of the lever points of what I want to control and what I don't care about controlling. And I have always cared about controlling my content and owning it. And 8 years ago, when I first self-published the 5-Second Rule book and I self-published the audiobook rights, everyone thought I was crazy. And no, I didn't make the New York Times. And no, it didn't do this. It did something way better. As it's gone on to sell millions and millions and millions of copies, as it's been translated into 50 some languages, and as it went on to become the most successful audiobook ever launched in history by a self-published author, I own it all. And I set a precedent. And as you look at the let them theory explode around the world, guess what? I own it all too, because I'm smart enough to understand the long tail of any business deal. And as a business owner, I will never do a deal for money now that in success, I would be pissed off that I didn't make a smarter deal, which means what? I play the long game because I bet on myself.
I love it. And it's fascinating to me that you started a podcast only 3 years ago. Like,
well, I'll tell you why.
Yeah, please.
The reason why, because I started, the first thing I ever did in media was I hosted this little Saturday morning radio show in Boston in like 2007 when our family was falling apart. We were struggling with debt and the $25 an hour, 2 hours a morning and reading Invisalign ads, honestly, for a dentist outside of Boston. Shout out Dr. Rockin. That paid for my kids' braces.
Right.
And I loved that job. And so when podcasting started to take off, I literally was like, I got to get in the game. I got to get in the game. And then what ended up happening is I started going, I'm too late. I'm too late. There's too many podcasts. There's too many. And every time I saw somebody launch a podcast, whether it's my buddy Jay Shetty or anybody else, I'd be like, oh, now I really blew it. Oh, now I can't do it. And it's not true. There's 8 billion people on the planet. There is room for you.
Right.
And if you start putting it out there, the people that want to listen to you will find you. And so when I made a decision about 3 years ago, because it was about 3 years ago, maybe 3.5 years ago, that I was like, that's it. I'm getting in the podcast business. What a lot of people don't realize is that my business has a second part to it. So it's a lot like Hello Sunshine. We are hired by companies like LinkedIn and Starbucks and Audible and Ulta Beauty to design custom programs, curriculum, audio series for their employees or their paid audience. So I happen to have created in my company the most popular course on all of LinkedIn Learning. It's about the science of confidence. They hired my company to do that. We have done an unprecedented 7-title production deal with Audible. where they come to me and we talk about kind of what people are looking for. And then we create an audio series where Audible pays my company to do that. And we have a stake in its success. And they haven't done that level of partnership with any other author on their platform or creator on their platform. And so what happened is I was running a business where I'm doing this for paying clients. And I'm also very aware that there's not a lot of podcasts that make money. It's very difficult to make money in the podcasting business. And so when I made the decision I'm getting in, I first spent a year fulfilling contractual obligations and squirreling money away because I'm not an idiot. There were 6 million podcasts when I started the Mel Robbins podcast on Spotify alone, and 99% of them don't make $1. And so if I'm going to run a business and still pay people salaries, and I'm going to take keynote speaking, and I'm not going to do another production for a partner for an entire year, I'm making a major business bet that this is going to work. And I'll also tell you that, you know, from the outside, everybody may look at me and be like, well, you have the #1 audiobook and you have this. Of course it's going to work. It is incredibly difficult to get anybody from one platform to another. It is incredibly difficult to move somebody from your email list to become a YouTube subscriber. It's difficult to get a YouTube subscriber to buy a book. It's nearly impossible to get somebody on Instagram to pay attention to something else. There are people to this day that watch my podcast on YouTube and don't realize I have a podcast because they're watching something on YouTube.
Right.
And so I just assumed it's going to take at least a year or two of doing this to ever even break into the top 100 and to even make any money. And so I got to take a business bet and I got to figure out the formula. And I got to be willing to do this for a year with absolutely no return. And after a year, I'll make a decision. And I'll tell you what, we did the first episode from the floor of my closet. We were complete idiots, had no idea how much work this was going to be or how complicated it was going to be. We jumped in with both feet. Even though I knew the formula, I didn't understand the complexity of how to do it. And this thing like hit lightning in the bottle because name the other female podcast host who is my age with a level of trust from corporations and from people globally who is doing a podcast that is not celebrity obsessed or slightly political, that feels like it's an entertaining thing that you can relate to.
Yeah,
there's nobody.
Yeah.
And there's your winning.
And so, yeah. And there, and the winning formula is just being yourself and recognizing that anything worth doing is worth doing for 10 or 15 years. And if you're not willing to do it for 10 or 15 years, then you're not really in it, because that's how long it takes.
Thank you so much. And if there's anything else you wanted to add, feel free. Or if you wanted to hint at what's next for you, feel free. And otherwise, we'll wrap up.
Well, you know what's next for me? And I think this is also a very hard thing in business, is not taking on more. I would like to get better at what I'm already doing. And that is a very new skill for me, because I have, as an entrepreneur and a CEO, chase the next thing and chase the growth and chase this and chase that and chase the other thing. I mean, I have reached the pinnacle of what's possible with this book launch, which is on track to be possibly the single most successful nonfiction book ever launched. It has certainly already eclipsed every single record of any book on relationships, leadership, or self-help. I mean, we are 2 months out of selling this, and based on the data that I've seen, we've sold 2.7 million copies of this. It is not even rolled out into the 40 languages and the 11 dubbed versions on audiobook. And we launched TikTok Shop today, which I was only able to do because I actually own the book. And TikTok Shop is a wholesale play, which means it doesn't actually get reported as a book scan. And most authors are so focused on making the times and having like sales reported. I'm not. I'm focused on the impact. I'm focused. And what's incredible about TikTok Shop, and this is the formula I figured out, is that it's a wholesale sale. So that means I get to set the price and I turn our entire audience into an affiliate. And anybody that recommends the book can make, I think it's 20% of the sale of the book. And that means I'm an affiliate on my book too. So now I make on the back and the front end.
Mm-hmm.
How cool is that?
Very smart. Mel, you're smart, you're kind, you shared your time and your heart with us today, and a whole lot of great advice and experience for our readers. So we really want to thank you. And we're going to share all of this with them and hope to just spread
awesome. Awesome. And if you guys aren't putting the book affiliate links, like there, you can now integrate all this on YouTube. You can do it all on TikTok for every interview that you do. That it's all there for more affiliate revenue, and they're just starting to make all this work. I would absolutely be looking into that, given all of the people that you have on the show and that you're, promoting on your platform.
Wonderful. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We'll have it everywhere, and of course on the magazine, the front cover won't hurt either. So.
Oh, that's true.
We'll make sure.
Well, thank you guys. Every success story like this is 15 years of bullshit leading to one moment. So I'm just trying to be present for it, but I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you shared that with the audience today. Hey, appreciate it. Take care.